The host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back, everybody. Our guest tonight is Alejandro Martinez Araiza, and he is the Secretary General of the National, I better get this right, hold on, the National Food and Commerce Union of Mexico. He's been in the news lately. He joins us from Mexico City. Alejandro, hello.
Hello, Jim. How are you? Thank you for the
invitation. Very good. I'm very good. Now, can you, first of all, can you explain briefly what and the acronym for your group is SNAC, which I thought that's kind of and I assume that's the translation in Mexican.
Easy to remember. It's the name in Spanish, Sindicato Nacional Alimenticio del Comercio, Food and Commerce Trade Union. We're in the private sector, almost 600 workplaces nationwide, representing and defending workers' rights since more than a century. And in companies, global companies, mostly like PepsiCo, Grupo Bimbo, Mars, Hershey, PPG, and many more, Mondelez, Arcor, etc. So we are on the ground in every corner of Mexico as a country.
How many people are in your union?
25,000 families.
25,000 people. That's pretty impressive. So you've been in the news lately because you have, and I find this kind of fascinating. You're saying that the United States should favor Mexican workers over Chinese workers. And one of the reasons, which I found really fascinating, which is the reason I want to have you on the show, is because you said increasing the wages of Mexican workers keeps them from joining cartels. And so can you elaborate on that?
Yes, Jim. I think two subjects very, very intertwined.
Yes.
Cheap labor is our common enemy. I think President Trump identified that, and I think any leader in any country that puts its own people first, its own working class first, it's laudable. It's something every one of us as a union leader should applaud and support, especially with China that used so many decades slave labor and cheap labor, child labor, to grow immensely in the 90s, in the 2000s, to become the superpower that is right now. You have in Mexico an ally, your number one trade partner. Mexico and the U.S. built almost the biggest economic bloc with Canada anywhere in the world. So we share not just supply chains and people and goods, we share values. And when the Mexican workers are not in poverty, in anger, in desperation, they don't feel the need to join the devil and be hired by cartels, or even worse, try to risk their lives crossing the border. So many of the American problems in the MAGA agenda, illegal migration, unfair trade, trafficking of children, fentanyl, you name it, has to do with the fact that the Mexicans are not able to support their own families, and they have to look to other directions, bad directions, to be able to live with dignity. So
well, you're absolutely right about that immigration issue. The reason people come here is to mostly to make money. And if they're making money in Mexico, there's no reason to come.
That's right. And the safest border, Jim, is a border that doesn't need Mexicans to come across.
Right.
Mexicans, we love our country. We enjoy our weather, our food, our culture. But of course, you're in survival mode in Mexico. Most of the working class is in the non-organized labor. So they don't have any human rights, any labor rights, any social rights. The wages are depending on the day, right? And you put on top of that the extortion of the cartels. People are really living a lot of cities, living a lot of towns. We want to stay here, of course, but we have to migrate. And I think that's also a problem of codependency of Americans with Mexican cheap labor. because we are in your restaurants, in your hotels, picking up the fruits and the vegetables you eat every day. And the American society depends too much also from illegal cheap labor. And we both need to comply with what the USMCA and President Trump is asking for, the labor rights from the people from Mexico and from America, of course.
Alejandro, I have to tell you, I'm a hardcore capitalist, but I truly agree people should get paid a reasonable wage. I mean, my personal feeling is if you can't run your company and pay your workers reasonably, you shouldn't be doing it. That's and also I need to bring you touched on this too, and people have to understand this. Americans have to understand this. The Chinese, their thing is they have so many people that they will actually they have abandoned some higher technology principles simply for example, if you're building a building in Beijing, you don't need a crane. You just hire 40 workers because they're easy to find. I mean, there's that place that's what they have, people. So they have actually kind of abandoned the more higher technology simply because they have all this cheap labor available. And I don't. Go ahead.
Also, we shouldn't forget about the fact that the North American region, Canada, Mexico, US, we are the second most powerful economic bloc in the world, just $1.5 trillion away from China's trade agreements. If we help everyone together, to Mexico middle class and the poor class to come up just by 1.5 trillion, which is not that much in a market which is 130 million people worth, we can you can beat China, and we can be the most powerful economic bloc in the world because China has, as you said, more than 1 billion people. We are 500 million people between all three countries. So we're more powerful GDP per capita than the RCEP agreement. I agree with you on capitalism. The problem is not capitalism itself. We already know Marxism never works. Socialism never works. But that's the civilizational issue we're facing right now. It's again a thing of values and ideology. And I see with a lot of worry in America now, presidential candidates talking about socialism again, communism, wearing niqabs and burqas for
Lost you. Hold on.
Propaganda again, to see you guys also falling into the trap of free. Is a great ally because we share Christian founding fathers. We share the values that said that God gave us dignity and the state should be kept small and as far away from the people as possible. So I think we're a better deal for you than China for sure.
Alejandro, could you give us some idea in US dollars what your average union worker gets paid?
Well, in our union, we have the best CBAs, labor contracts in Mexico in the food sector. An entry-level worker would be earning with benefits around $900 a month. The truckers, they earn the most. They can earn up to $7,000 a month.
Is that a lot in Mexico?
Yes, that's a lot. That's a lot.
No,
that's a lot. $7,000.
How about $900? Is $900?
Yes, it's the entry level. Imagine it's more than 7 times. But I would say that the minimum wage in Mexico right now is around $19 a day. So you can imagine with $450 a month, it's impossible to survive and to support a family of 4. Right. So when I spoke last December at the hearings of the USTR, I had the honor to be the only Mexican invited to speak about these issues: labor, wages, strong North America. I proposed a baseline for the Mexican workers from $1,750 a month at least to be able to support a family of 4. And from there, depending on the sector and the industry and the business, upwards. That would also be good for American jobs because the incentive to bring the industry to Mexico because of cheap labor and fake unions would be disappearing more and more every year.
Yeah. So have you had any trouble then? It sounds like you haven't had much trouble convincing the major corporations like PepsiCo that it's in their best interest to actually pay people more. You're not getting much resistance to this idea.
I have resistance from every side but the working class side. In people in charge of trade, at the end, of course, everyone says, yeah, we need workers to earn more and we want the Mexicans to be better and American jobs, bring them back and all this, blah, blah, blah. But when you say, okay, let's do it, it's like, yeah, but we will lose against China, the race, and we will lose to be competitive in the labor market, and we will lose and we will lose. So at the end, it doesn't really happen, you know?
Huh.
And when you have a monster like China in front of you, paying slave wages or hiring 40 people instead of a crane, you are part of the problem. We become part of the problem because we want $10 Barbie dolls instead of $20 Barbie dolls produced in America and Mexico and in Canada. So that's also part of the circle device that we're in. We're too dependent on China, anyone in the world, but especially in North America, and we have to lose some peu à peu. Every year we have to lose this dependence from the Chinese and the Asian market.
But I want you to be clear on this. It sounds like you have the support of the Trump administration, though, right?
Well, I have had very good talks with people in Congress, with representatives of Ways and Means, which are in charge of trade, with the people in the embassy, with the labor attaches, with people in DOL. Also, I have been having very productive talks with them. And I will continue to do that because we need to knock on the doors of the big corporations. As you said, PepsiCo is a corporation in America and in Mexico who is very, very well known because of union busting activity. They invest a lot of money not to have real unions in Mexico. We have a lot of lawsuits against PepsiCo here in Mexico with even bigger problems with the lawyers because they don't want the workers to organize and to defend themselves. But it's PepsiCo and it's Walmart and it's Costco and it's Coke and McDonald's and you name it, you know, all of them are here mainly for cheap labor and not complying with labor standards. So we have to be sure that the USMCA is enforced.
Well, I never thought of this until this very moment, but in some ways, you got a balancing act going because the reason the major American corporations are coming to Mexico is for the cheap labor. But on the other hand, for example, if you were to pay, hypothetically, Mexican workers on a par with American workers, there'd be no reason to come, right?
You're right. So you have to force us as Mexicans to build our own industry.
Yeah.
And stop being your manufacturing neighbor. I think that's good for everyone.
And why hasn't that happened?
Well, nobody wants to talk about massive firing of people. The automotive sector is very nervous because 20 million American jobs depend on the American and Mexican automotive sector. That big is the supply chain, direct and indirect jobs. Of course, President Trump wants to bring jobs back from Mexico. Okay, fine. But we have another problem. America is losing more jobs, more manufacturing jobs than Mexico, just against AI and new technologies. I don't think that any president, not just President Trump, will be able to bring back hundreds of thousands of jobs, which is really relevant, without risking that the automotive industry prefers to invest in robots and AI for the new cars and the new vehicles. So that's going to be the next struggle for Mexico and America. We will survive. Mexico is used to crisis, firing people, organized labor. The problem is that when Mexico suffers, you get fentanyl, you get forced migration, you get crime, you get corruption, you get money laundering in your banks. Americans die, hundreds of thousands. So it's in your interest that Mexico, as your neighbor, your ally, is also doing good.
Alejandro, this is kind of off topic, but I do have to ask, how much do the cartels control life in Mexico?
Well, I'm not a politician, but I read also the stats, and it is
you live there too, on a day-to-day basis. Like what?
Exactly. Like I don't know one state from the 32 states in Mexico where I don't have problems with cartels. My workers, my affiliates don't have any trouble with the cartels. Either you're paying extortion, or you get kidnapped, or you see that every little business around you is paying some kind of double taxing to the cartels. You can see that in Michoacan, in the avocado industry. I was telling a congressman 3 weeks ago in Washington, all Americans are paying tax to the cartels. Any avocado, any guacamole you eat, the price has the cartel tax embedded in the price of your avocados. So we have to battle this, because otherwise, and this is Biden's problem, Mexico almost got totally destroyed in the social fabric in the 4 years of the Biden administration, because he opened the borders, he incentivized hundreds of thousands, millions of migrants to come through Mexico. Many of them stood here, and we have the same problems with illegal migration, cheap labor, slave labor, working for the cartels, child trafficking, but we don't have the tools and the money to solve it like you do. So the problem in Mexico is now worse. And imagine these numbers. They say that cartels charge between $30,000 and $50,000 pro migrant to bring them from the southern border to the northern border. America is saying that they had 10,000 migrant encounters a day during Biden administration. It's $300 million a day.
Yeah.
Multiply by 4 years. This is the power of the cartels. It's just migrant trafficking.
Right.
If you add drug trafficking, gasoline trafficking, child trafficking, women trafficking, you're talking about the richest and most powerful entities ever existed in the human history. And that was because of the policies of the last administration.
And it never occurred to me as an American, I mean, this is very good that you're bringing this up, that because those people came through Mexico, it's also Mexico's problem. I never really, I have to admit, I never really thought of that. You know,
the Mexican fields are full of foreign slaves. Really, when you go there to the field work, you realize, first of all, there are almost no more Mexicans working there, because the work is so awful and bad paid and mistreated. So you have people from Central America and South America working as slaves in the fields, and you get your mangoes and your bananas and everything from this forced labor situation. And we have to address this as soon as possible with the review of the USMCA.
This is really amazing. America's migrant problem became Mexico's migrant problem, and I never really thought of it. It never occurred to me before. I mean, for that reason alone, I'm glad you're on today. People need to hear this stuff, you know. Not to mention the fact, you know, I will say something really obvious. Slave labor is immoral.
Yes.
You know,
I mean,
terrible.
we're Christians, most of us, both countries. We know the dignity was given by God and by anybody else. And what's happening to millions of Mexicans and Americans the last years, especially the last 4 years of your last administration, is really something almost demonic. When you're trafficking 300,000 children and losing them to cartels and to sex trafficking supply chains, that is not from God. That is from the other side of the aisle.
So your suggestion or is that Mexican that combat this by raising the wages so that people don't have to leave, and so that Mexicans can actually take these jobs, correct?
Exactly. Mexicans have to organize in formal labor again, so companies are attractive to Mexicans again, and they don't have to work either for the cartels, not for the streets market, you know?
Right.
But with the wages, even if the government raised wages the last 6 years in an important way, we're still very, very far away from you. I know we're not going to get the $10 an hour jobs tomorrow, but I think we can have a better baseline, a regional baseline. So we are really becoming the most powerful bloc in the world with this new policy with President Trump.
Alejandro, I have a problem because I'm kind of naive. I'm really serious about this. I don't understand why the American corporations don't get the idea that this is in their best interest to do this. I don't, because it just seems to me
business is too good. They have in Mexico, these companies, margins that they never get anywhere in the world. We're talking about companies like Uber, like Walmart. They have had years where they have 40% profit. Uber grew 400% from 1 year to another, their profit. That doesn't happen without destroying society, without destroying families, without extracting value from people, from their own lives. You know, it's not normal to grow 4 times. It's not normal to have 40, 50% profits right now. Maybe in the future where everything AI and robots and no more humans are needed, maybe you have 80% profit and then you will have to put it back on the society somehow. But right now, Walmart, PepsiCo, and these big companies know that if they comply with what dignity in the workplace, in other parts of the country, in the first world, like America, like Europe, some countries in Europe, not everywhere, they will go back to 10%, 8%, 12%. And the board won't like this, and the stock market won't like this. So we're stuck in that part of the problem. The American companies are subsidizing directly and indirectly the insecurity in your streets, the migrant labor, the cartel activities, for sure.
But still, in a perfect world, you still have the challenge of the fact you have to keep the labor costs in Mexico low enough so that it's still attractive to do work there. Because, like I said, if they're high, there's no incentive for people to come at all. Am I right?
Well, our president proposed last year Plan Mexico, which I think was part of the big picture of decoupling from all other neighbors and building our own industry. Because remember, Mexico knows how to build planes, aerospatial industry. We're strong in automotive industry. Just if the companies leave, okay, fine. You're having the workforce able to build first world cars here. So we just need our own businessmen. We have very rich businessmen in the top 20 richest men in the world. We have to get them to invest in their own country, in their own industries, own brands, and offer the rest of the world Mexican products, and not just made in America.
Now, you touched on this a little earlier. What's your thoughts on AI in terms of replacing labor?
I think we're gonna fall into a deep crisis of unemployment in the next 5 years.
So do I. I've been saying this for 20 years. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna have a really, really bad problem. My personal feeling is I think we'll end up coming out of it, but for maybe a decade, it's gonna be very, really severe. That's my prediction anyway. So that's what you're thinking too?
Yes, actually, my third point in the hearings in front of the USTR was AI and new technologies. I urged them to put this as the first chapter of the new trade agreement because everything is going to change in the next 2 years. Everything with trade, everything with labor, everything with rules of origin, everything with private property and intellectual property. And they are not addressing this. And I told the Department of State very clearly, if you're worried about migration, illegal migration, wait till you get AI migrants.
Yeah.
There come millions.
Alejandro, this was just the news this morning. Hyundai announced they're going to buy 25,000 Android robots for their assembly line factories. You know,
Tesla is going to produce 1 million a year, right? And the other companies are going to do the same. Chinese companies are already producing very cheap robots for basic
labor. You were talking about slave labor. These robots are essentially slaves.
Yeah. I think we're going to talk about robots' rights in 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. You buy them once and they work 24 hours a day, you know? And then this is science fiction crap. And then the thing is, what if they rebel? That's already I don't know if you know that. I mean,
God made us after his image, and we are also creators. And the big sci-fi novels of the 19th century became true on the 20th century. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, The Matrix and Terminator and RoboCop are gonna be, or Star Trek, Star Wars are gonna be our next reality.
Yeah. What's next for you now? Are you still come back to the United States to talk to the administration, or what are you doing?
I'm gonna be back next month to Washington and advocate towards these issues. Try to find a stronger voice also on the other side, because also in America there has been a lot of resistance, of course, for these subjects. And especially the thing we're building our own AI, ironically, because my thesis is that the working class will need their own giants, their own logical giants to fight this last battle, anywhere from blue collar to white collar. I think white collar jobs are going first. Actually, you see this in Meta, Google, Amazon, PepsiCo, Bimbo. White collar jobs are disappearing by the thousands. At some point, the blue collar jobs are going to come. So we need to build our own giants, training an AI to help educate, organize, and defend the working class from your cell phone. And we want to turn every worker into a labor inspector in Mexico, US, and Canada. That's our.
Alejandro, you can take this as flattery, but that's downright brilliant. You know, I mean, you gotta. It's like that's really forward thinking on your part. I'm impressed. I'd like you to come back in 6 months to give us an update on how things are going.
Yeah,
I learned. I mean, we've only talked for 25 minutes here, and you said a couple things that I never occurred to me ever. So, and I think the American public needs to hear more of this stuff. So,
thank you. I'd be glad to be back.
Oh, I appreciate it.
What's going to happen in the next months and years between us?
Yeah, you take care.